Welcome to Wonders and Miracles podcast, where we celebrate miraculous moments in everyday lives. I'm Liza Lawrence. I'm glad to have you join me as we celebrate wonders and miracles together. All right. Well, I am here today with Cindy from Utah, and she is going to share a miracle story that started really in 2002 when her husband needed a kidney transplant. And at one point, she thought maybe she had a stroke, and they discovered that she has MS. After her diagnosis, she was told that she would be in a nursing home by the time she was 40. She had to learn to walk and talk again. Some amazing transformation and experience. She's going to share the miracles that she saw. So, Cindy, thank you so much for being willing to share your story and tell us
You're
what
welcome.
happened.
So in that year, in 2002, my husband, he was going for a kidney transplant. He needed a kidney transplant. He got the kidney transplant. It was a perfect 6-6 match. It failed after being put in his body, and he had to be taken out. And that year was so stressful for me. We were raising 4 kids, and about the fall, I took my 4 kids to the pumpkin patch. And it just felt funny. I felt really weird that day. And afterwards, I got home. I called my mom in Utah, and I said, I don't feel well. And I sounded drunk, and I don't drink. So she knew something was wrong, right? She told me, go to the hospital and be checked. I said, Mom, I'll be fine. I'll go in the morning, right? We always do that. So I went to bed that night, and if a loud voice, go now, popped in my head. I rolled up and I said, nah, I'll be okay. I'll be all right, right? And I heard it again, no more than 5 minutes later, really strong, go now. I thought, oh, how am I going to do this? My husband's asleep, my kids are asleep. I wrote him a note. I did a naughty, and I wrote him a note. And I drove myself 45 minutes down from Pennsylvania to New Jersey, where we were living, and went to the hospital.
How old were you at this time?
Probably like 32, 33, somewhere in there.
So pretty young.
Yeah, pretty young. My husband worked in, all of his insurance was in New Jersey, so all of our medical was in New Jersey. So I had to go to New Jersey to get help. So I drove down. I just sang songs to God and just singing the whole way because I just didn't know if I'd make it. Please just give me there. So I pulled into the parking lot, and I walked into the emergency room, and there was an African American guard at the door. And I just said, I can't feel my side. And he looked at me and went all white. He just took me right back. He didn't even check me in, nothing. He just went right back and got me the nurses and stuff and said, she's in trouble. So I get back there, and they call the emergency room doctor. He comes over and looks at me, and they call the neurologist, and he was there within an hour. Put a pin at my foot, felt nothing. Put a pin at my other foot, I felt something. So then he goes back to the other foot and goes deeper, and I felt nothing. He goes, really bad. So they admitted me to the hospital and did testing for 2 days. A lot of different testing. Within that time frame, I also went blind. I couldn't see. By the time they got done, they came back to me with the MRI testing. They hit my optic nerve, my brain stem, my spinal cord, my cerebrum, and all 4 areas of my brain. So I was in trouble. The doctor came in to me after they did the MRI testing and all that. And he said to me, Cindy, you have what we call MS. We've ruled out everything else that might be, and it's going to be multiple sclerosis. And in your condition with all 4 areas of your brain and how far advanced it is, I wouldn't be surprised if you end up in a nursing home by the time you're 40, or people don't survive this. So it's going to be an uphill battle for you. And then they transported me to the rehab center. And that night, before I went to the rehab center, I remember praying and just crying to God. I just said, why me? Why me? I was so mad. I was angry. I just said, why? I have too much on my plate as it is. Why me? And the same voice came to me in the middle of the night, softer this time. And it was Cindy, why not? I, the Lord, have more confidence in you than you have in yourself. And I just had a peace the whole rest of the night. Woke up in the morning, they transported me by ambulance to the rehab center. I was there for 6 weeks. I had to call my mom in Utah, and she flew out for 30 days to help my husband with the kids because I wasn't there, and he was sick. So I had to learn to talk, chew, swallow, stand. I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't do anything because I had nothing in my arm or my leg and my side of my body. And then his insurance ran out after 6 weeks. And they came to me and said, well, we can't do any more for you. And they shipped me home by ambulance to my house in Pennsylvania and put me on my couch and said, there's nothing more we can do to help you. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I had two little angels, my therapists that were helping me in New Jersey, came to me and felt so bad. They put together some programs to help me with therapists out there in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has, because of the lottery system, they have a program for the elderly and disabled that helps them with an aid. So I got an aide to come in and help me bathe. I was pretty humiliating, pretty scary. Yeah, I had to have someone help me do all that and raise my kids and be a mom, right? I also had to have a wheelchair ramp put on my house. And another part of the miracle was this house in Pennsylvania was a 1949 Cape Cod house, an older home. So they had to renovate the whole bathroom as a wheelchair access for me. They remodeled everything in that bathroom but the light fixture. But after we were in the house, we were there for a little while. I told my husband, I said, I really have an impression that we need to move back to Utah. I need to be by my family for help. Which is interesting because after we sold the house quickly, the owner of the home I kept contact with, but within a month of selling the house, a hurricane came up the coast of New Jersey, the whole side of the East Coast, and rain hit and it just flooded the basement. And that old 1949 Cape Cod house, that light fixture that never got changed, the homeowner that bought it said the electrician said it was that close to burning the whole house down.
Wow.
So, I mean, not only that, but it could have been really bad for us as well with that fire, with that light.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So after we moved to Utah, I was in my wheelchair for 6 years. I had to raise my kids from the wheelchair for 6 years. And I remember one day I had to do laundry. They remodeled my whole upstairs to be wheelchair accessible, so I had no barriers. And I couldn't fold laundry. I had to do it one-handed, right? That's so hard. And I had to, all your kids have projects, right? They're in school. Mom, you have to do this, you have to do that. So I had to go with my wheelchair and drive in my wheelchair up a big, huge hill, to go to the grocery store, go to the photocopy place, and go back down. And one day I stopped at the post office. And they knew me there. And I had a beanie hat on. I kind of looked homeless because I have all my bags on the back of the wheelchair, looking funny. I'm in the post office, and there's a mom and a daughter. And they were looking at me and kind of pointing and kind of snickering and laughing. I knew they were talking about me. I just said at that point, I said to God when I left, I said, if I get it back, I will never judge anyone because we all have a story. And we should never assume something. We should give them the benefit of the doubt. So at that point, I just went home and I just said, I'm not going to ever judge anyone. So when I was in the wheelchair, I had some therapists that we arranged to come into the house for physical therapy to learn to walk again. And they had to do shock treatment on my arm to send stimulation to my brain to tell my brain I had an arm. The physical therapist that helped me walk again, I remember very vividly. What helped me the most is music. Inspiring music to help me and people in my life that I admire who have gone through a lot in their life. And so I use that to help me learn to get motivated and to keep going and to walk again. After learning to walk again, I walked with a cane. I went back to school at the university at UVU, and I walked to school with a cane for probably 3 years to get my degree. But I met the president of the school, President Matthew Holland. I told him my story, and he was really inspired by the story. He says, I really want to help kids like you, because I know you're struggling to even afford to go to school. And that time, the school was not quite a university yet. They only had $250,000 for the kids for scholarships money, which is not very much for that many kids. So he said, I have a plan. And he invited me to the scholarship hall. He said, I want you to be there and tell your story. We're going to tell all the donors and the people that have money just what they can do to help people like you. So I told my story, and he said to them, let's raise 10 times that much money. I want to see over $2 million for these kids. And a year later, I got a call to go back to the scholarship hall that he was going to announce that they had raised over $4.2 million for the kids. So they raised way more for the kids.
That's
so
amazing.
the miracle, it helped, right? Not only me, but just help somebody else out. So my trials help somebody else. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah. And how did that make you feel to have such an impact for good at that time?
I felt really good. I knew that my struggles were for a purpose. Everything's for a purpose and a reason. We meet people for a reason. And so much in life, we just get down and we forget and we want to give up. But we don't need to give up, because when we see a door shut, God opens a window. So we have to find that window and just keep going and keep looking for the good and looking for who we can help and how we can be an instrument in the hands to do good. Because just like my husband's story, I tell people all the time, he got a second kidney transplant. And the second kidney transplant was a perfect 6-6 match. He came from an African-American young man in Cleveland, Ohio, which is a miracle in itself. There was this perfect 6 match, and they told us it was like winning the lottery twice, because the first one was a 6-6, and then so I've been on a mission to tell people not only we go through the same motions in life, but we're all the same. No matter what the color, no matter who we are, we're all the same. We're all God's children, and He loves us all the same. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the doctors are just amazed because they don't know why. I'm off all my medication. I take no MS medication. I swim every morning. Take my husband to dialysis because he lost his second kidney transplant. And his mom's on dialysis, so I drop her off and then drop him off, and I go swimming in the morning. I keep moving, and they don't know why I can't keep going. But if you don't use it, you'll lose it. But doctors are amazed that I'm off all my medication and that I just have a new lease on life. One of my favorite quotes is by C.S. Lewis. You can't change your beginning, but you can start where you are and change your ending. So I love that, because we all have hope when we have power. And that's what it's about. It's about having hope. But I just think, it's a miracle that I'm even here. It's a miracle that I'm able to help people. It's a miracle that God is full of miracles. And they're little miracles. There's miracles every day in your life. You'll see them. They're there. You might find your keys and you can't find your keys, and all of a sudden you find your keys. You're like, oh, that's your little miracle for the day, because it might be small, might not be this big, huge miracle like what I went through, but little miracles happen all the time, every day. When you recognize the small, the big ones come, because then He knows you're humble and you appreciate what you got.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think as I've worked on this podcast and started really paying attention to those little miracles, I see more and more. And I think that's one of my taglines at the end is the more miracles we notice, the more miracles happen because we
Exactly.
are receptive and we're grateful, and gratitude is so important for receiving those miracles that God wants to give us and show us.
I've been told that I have light in my eyes. I think that light is because I don't just have sympathy for someone, I have empathy because I have walked it. So I can see people and just say, wow. I can not just say, I'm sorry you're going through all that. I can really empathize because I've lived it. And I know what it's like. It's not an easy path, but it's worth it to just keep going.
Absolutely. How long did it take you to relearn to walk and to really get your mobility back?
Oh, so that took probably several years. Well, I was 6 years in the wheelchair, and I was 3 years with a cane, so it probably go for 6 years to get back to walking. I walk it. There's a hill by my house, and if you go all the way up the top, the second stop sign is 6 flights of stairs. So I do that 5 times a day. So I'm doing 30 flights of stairs plus swimming. To that point, it probably took about 6 years to really get my strength back up and do it. I coach people and talk to people all across the country and just give them some motivation to keep going, because I know there's a lot of health problems out there. MS is an autoimmune disease, and there are so many autoimmune diseases out there that affect people. So if I can help them discover their code and crack their little thing and help them find motivation to keep going, then it's all worth it.
Yeah, that's inspiring to have a living example of someone who has overcome the challenges and is doing so much better than the doctors thought you would, that anyone really thought you would. And that really is inspiring and miraculous.
Especially when they tell you you're going to die. in your 30s, you're like, no way, not me, not today.
Yeah. And I think that mindset is so powerful in keeping us motivated. And I'm sure it wasn't easy to keep
No,
positive.
it's been hard.
Yeah. What were some of the major things? You mentioned music was a huge motivator for you. Were there other things that kept your head in the game of life and improvement and progress that really motivated you?
I think you surround yourself with people that you admire and motivated me. I surround myself with people that I knew had life-changing experiences. And when you surround yourself with good, you be the good, right?
I agree with that. I have a teacher that he's a Hindu guru, but one of the statements he says is your environment is more powerful than your willpower. And so, who you surround yourself with, what you're
Mm-hmm.
listening to, what you're feeding your mind is your environment. And that has more power on keeping us motivated and happy and feeling good than our own self will. And it feeds our will, like it feeds our
Yes.
willpower when we can really surround ourselves with a healthy environment.
Another little tip I did is if you have dreams in life or ambition, if you see it, your mind makes it happen, right? So I tell people if you want to go to a special place here, maybe you want to go to an exotic place and that's your dream. Wherever you want your dream to be, my dream was to walk again. So having myself walking, having a picture by my bathroom mirror every day that I see that, it makes your mind want to, and then it puts the people in your place that motivates you to keep you going because your mind makes it.
I believe in that as well. I love vision boards. When I'm stuck in a funk, an old story, I always have to remind myself, wait, what do I want instead of this? What am I wanting to achieve or work towards? And it will pull me out every time because I think it's easy to kind of wallow when we're in a real
Yeah.
struggle.
One,
And yes, why me? This is so hard. But to just have even someone remind you, like, remember, what do you want instead? What's a vision that you are working towards? I think is so powerful for our growth for sure.
that's definitely mind over matter.
And the mind is powerful. It creates our reality.
It does create a reality. And we have to look at things that happen in our life and just say, there's a reason, there's a plan. I was in the Grand Canyon. We've been there before, and you're at the top, and you see the little river, and it took millions of years to make that happen. I picture that as God is up here looking down upon us, walking along the river of life, and we can't see the whole picture, but He's like, "Come on, it's there. I can see it. Keep going, keep going." So if we just rely more on Him and His power to guide us and inspire us, then how can we go on? Because He can see the whole thing. We're on the river. We can't see the top of what is happening.
Yeah,
So
having that bigger perspective of I can trust God because he sees more than I do and he will
Mhm.
guide me along this path.
Well, it goes to the miracle that when I heard the second time when I was crying out, "Why me?" that night, and just really mad at God, and heard that soft, gentle voice. The second time it was soft. First time it was loud because it was like, emergency, go now. But the second time it was more softer. Why not? I, Lord God, have more faith in you than you have in yourself. And so I just know that He knows the beginning to the end, and He knows that I can handle it, and that maybe my story will inspire one person. It's a ripple effect. If I can just help someone be more happier and realize that what they have isn't as bad as what other people have, then their life is good. And there are miracles within miracles. When I was in rehab, I had someone, a successful businessman in New York City, was in rehab. He had millions and millions of dollars, lots of money, lots of everything you could ever want. And he looked at me and he said, "Cindy, how come you're so happy? You're struggling and blind and paralyzed. How can you be so happy?" He had had a stroke and he was in the rehab for the stroke. And he says, "How can you be so happy? I've risked all my life for money and wealth and haven't found happiness. And you're happy." And I think just being happy with no matter where you are in life makes a difference. Have an attitude of gratitude, that because we can have everything in the world we want, We have all the money in the world we want, but what do we have? Are we happy? Really?
And where do you find that? Do you think that that was an innate gift for you, or did you work hard on that happiness? Because I think a lot of people seek that. They're like, I want to be happy. That's really what they're wanting. So, where did that happiness come from for you?
I think when I was in the hospital one night, when I was blind especially, I thought my whole world was done. I thought after he had told me why not, I knew that if he trusted me enough, that I would be okay and that he would provide miracles and I could be happy and find happiness. I think just relying on the greater power and more beyond you and just surround yourself with happy things and just definitely writing down what makes you tick. Like my health coach people, if you don't feel well, if you have a disease or if you have arthritis or something happening in your life, everything is linked. So everything that goes in your body comes out. So it could be food, it could be emotions, it could be what you're doing. Everything we do to our bodies comes out. So figuring out your code and what makes you tick as a person makes you happy, right? So if you're healthy and happy, then you can function. So keeping a health journal on what you do physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all of us living together. So if we can harmonize that, we'll find happiness because we'll feel better and we're happier in the end because you want to feel good and enjoy what you have.
I think that's empowering. Write it down, see it clearly, and then help yourself.
My brother died 4 years ago at 42 of colon cancer. But 2 days before he died, my 40-year-old sister got diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. And that's what I did some research on diet. And diet really helped me kick it over the top and feel better about myself and about life. Because what we put in makes a difference on how we tick and how we run.
I think diet's huge.
Yes, very good.
And I was told probably 10 years ago to change our family's diet for my son, who we thought was on the spectrum and was really reacting to all kinds of chemicals in his food, and it was not working well with his body chemistry. So we eat really clean. Do you do really specific things? I've just started researching the whole food plant-based diet, and I'm looking into that right now.
So I read a book by Dr. Peter Diamo. It's been out for 20 years, and it's on Eat Right for Your Type. So I lost 78 pounds on this diet. Make sure it's clean because all those chemicals. The study that I read after my brother died, it was in 2008 pharmaceutical study that said 90 to 95% of our cancers and illnesses are caused by our diet. I'm feeling really good here in California. I'm with my daughter and the new baby, and yeah, I'm eating all vegan and vegetarian, and I feel a lot better.
Have you noticed a difference?
Oh, totally. I'm gonna go back home and throw away all my meat or just give it away.
That's so interesting to hear because I feel like I also feel I watch the big picture of God, how he orchestrates everything. And I feel like that so many people are being taught and drawn to the whole food plant-based. Like my dad actually had cancer, prostate cancer 4 years ago, and he went to whole food plant-based. And so my parents have been whole food plant-based for several years, and it helped my dad's cancer heal, and they're super healthy now. They're in their 60s, almost 70s, and so much healthier than they used to be. And I think it's amazing.
I think it is too. I think it's amazing that if we recognize God's given us something simple to fix it. And I really think if we have a healthy body, we're more in tune. I think that he needs some of us to be mind, spirit, and body. And so many people don't have the body to be in tune because it's like this. I tell people all the time. If God has a radio station and he's broadcasting out to us and helping us, and our radio is broken, how can we receive it? How can we get inspiration if our radio is broken? We have to be physically able to hear it. And a lot of times, or someone will hit the dial and knock us off the station so we can't receive that inspiration. So it's who we're around makes us be off the dial so we can't be inspired and hear God. So it's about, like you said, it's about having the right people around us so we stay on God's station and we can stay in tune to have our own personal revelations because he'll guide us. And he's given us that power. He's given us hope. And so much people want to take that hope away from you. But the hope is there, and God has given us hope, and He will always be there. And that's inspiring.
That is inspiring. I love that. My husband and I are meditators, and we would teach meditation classes. And so my husband would often say that very same thing, but in relation to a TV. If you want good reception for that TV signal, you have to be clear. You have to be clean. Otherwise it's fuzzy and you're not sure. And it was interesting. The other day I was meditating, and normally I can feel really strong, like love and gratitude and joy in my body. And I was numb. And it was a Monday, and Sunday, the night before, we had a birthday party. And so I was meditating, and I was like, I prayed and I said, why am I not feeling the intense love that I normally feel? Like I just feel dull. And I was reminded, remember what you ate yesterday? You had birthday cake. You had a roast. Like it was the food I was shown. Like these things are dulling your senses and not allowing you to receive higher frequencies that will lift you, that will bring you closer to God and be more open and inspired to revelation. And so it was a reminder again of diet matters, food matters, what you put into your body will influence you.
Well, it's funny because when I health coach people and I say something of my story, and I remind them it's as simple as first thing I do is fix your diet, because diet is a huge key factor. My brother died, that moved to my number one. My number two is stress. 85% of all chronic diseases are linked to stress. So those are what I figured out from my health journal. Those are my key things that I figured out for me. But when my brother died, diet went up to number one, and then that's when I really realized just how important, and a clean diet.
Yeah.
The chemicals and the processed food are just weighing us down. We can't think. My biggest thing I tell people that they keep a health journal and write down what they put in is what they get out. That's the biggest thing. And just to watch how you feel, and then it's linked. Everything's linked.
Amen. Well, Cindy, what a beautiful experience to have grown through hard, but amazing that you are doing so well, and it sounds like you function really well, and you've overcome so much. That's amazing.
I was really glad because when I went to school, I took some upper division classes for real estate. So I now take what I have, and I actually do real estate and help people, families that thought they could never achieve a home or a goal or a dream, and I have to help several families that get into the dream and have a new life and have a different perspective. It's all perspective. We have good, better, and best in life, so I'm just working along for the best.
I love it. And it sounds like you found a nice purpose to help people, and really you're a living example of your purpose of I've overcome, you can too.
Love life, because life is good, right?
Yes. Thank you so much for listening to this miracle story. Please subscribe to my channel if you liked it. You can also find me on iTunes, Stitcher,